All right, hello Astro subscribers, and welcome back to another video on the exalted and debilitated nature of planets, in particular signs and houses. Um, if you need an in-depth, detailed explanation of the signs and houses, you can check out my Planets Through Ascendants. You can also check out my sun sign video, because it will be explaining what's close to the pure nature of each sign and planet. So basically, what exalted and debilitated planets are is, imagine that as the planet goes through the zodiac belt, it has a particular strength and a particular weakness. It goes through periods of strength and weakness relative to other signs, and there is a point in this, or 130-degree segment of the 360-degree circle, where it is the most strong or exalted, or it is the most weak or debilitated. And notice when I'm saying strong and weak, what I mean is something more like its level of self-esteem or its respect. For instance, somebody with Mars in Cancer could be a great fighter, but they might not be a respected fighter. And this will be more apparent as I go into these things later. Just know that it's not an issue of good versus bad. It's more like where the planet feels comfortable and where it feels less comfortable, let's say. So, Sun in Aries, for instance, which was the topic of the last video, is not better than Sun in Libra. It's just more comfortable in that placement than the opposite placement. So, with this being said, let's get into the topic of today's video, which is the moon. And the moon is a planet which rules primarily your comfort, where you are happy, where you are emotionally satisfied, and where you feel safe. So it also represents the place your mind goes back to when you're not really thinking about anything consciously. So it's the unconscious mind, whereas Mercury is the conscious mind. So if you have an idea that you're trying to project into the world, that the quality of that idea is going to be determined in large part, by your Mercury placement. However, the constant mental chatter that's going on in the back of your head all the time, this is the moon. And whether that constant mental chatter is neutral, positive, negative, aggressive, whatever, is going to be determined by your moon sign and your moon house. So the moon is exalted, like I said, in Taurus, and the analog house of Taurus is the second house, and it's debilitated in Scorpio in the eighth house. Notice the exaltation and the debilitation are always 180 degrees apart from each other. So, what does the moon in Taurus mean? When somebody has moon in Taurus, their constant mental chatter is very self-affirming, it's very positive. They have a very symmetrical and harmonious mental chatter, and also moon represents beauty, and it represents your ability to emotionally influence others. So these people they have a very optimistic but also stable and grounded nature, as opposed to somebody with moon in Leo or moon in Sagittarius who might be optimistic, but depending on the house placement and everything else, of course, but they might be prone to impulsivity, because fire is also impulsivity. Whereas if somebody has the moon in Taurus, they are going to have a naturally pleasing energy, where they can walk into a room and people will generally like them more than they would somebody with like moon in another placement. And the reason for this is because their mental chatter is constantly, it's very stable. They see things closer to how they are, and they see the world through sort of rose-colored glasses in a way. That's not to say that these people can't have depressive tendencies. One of the most depressed people I knew had an exalted moon sign, but it was conjunct Saturn in his 12th house, which is a water sign. So one thing to know about exalted and debilitated planets is that they, how do I put this? There's only one sign that a planet is exalted in, but it is also sort of half exalted in the element that its exaltation sign is in. So, for instance, Moon being exalted in Taurus means that it is going to be much more comfortable in the signs of Virgo and Capricorn, and it's going to have sort of half the effect of having a Moon in Taurus. These signs don't have the same energy as Taurus, but they're more similar to Taurus than the other signs. So, that being said, the debilitated placement is always 180 degrees from the exalted placement, and Scorpio being the opposite of Taurus. And if you remember, opposite placements are, the best way to put them is that they're accomplishing the same task as their opposite in a different way. So it's not that Taurus and Scorpio are enemies, it's that they're trying to do the same thing and taking opposite approaches. So they both deal with stability, security, comfort, and material wealth. But Taurus takes a more straightforward approach to it, whereas Scorpio's approach to attaining comfort, stability, and material wealth is to confront every single thing that scares it and then destroy or otherwise incorporate or conquer those things that scare it. And then therefore there's nothing to be afraid of, so they feel that they can be safe. It is sort of a avoid the dragon versus a conquer the dragon and build a house out of its scales mentality. So the best way to think about this is the story of The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings. If you remember in the story of The Hobbit, Bilbo, and the letter for Taurus is B, so it's not really an accident that Bilbo is named that. When Gandalf, the wizard being Gemini, comes to Bilbo and he says, you're going to go on an adventure to go kill a dragon and take all its gold. And Bilbo, who's just this little dude who is very comfortable in his house, he's like, no, go away. I just want to stay here where it's safe and I have all this food and I'm doing fine. And so when Bilbo is before the dragon fight, before he goes on this crazy adventure, that's Taurus. It's comfort, it's stability, it's peace. I don't want to question anything. I just have what I have, and that's fine. And then the Scorpio is when he kills the dragon and comes back, and also when he's fighting the dragon and everything else, and going on the adventure. That's Scorpio. So when the moon is in Scorpio, this person constantly feels like they need to root out and destroy everything that scares them in the entire world. And obviously not everybody can do that. It would be a very rare individual who could conquer fear completely. But that is the purpose of Scorpio. And when you have the moon in Scorpio, which is a very fast-moving planet, the rate at which this person is exposed to things that scare them, to monsters, dragons, the ghosts of their past karmic debts, their potential fears, these things accelerate because Moon is the fastest moving planet. So these people constantly get exposed to one bad thing after another, and they could feel like they're cursed, but in reality their mind is just trying to expose them to everything that they are afraid of unconsciously so that they don't have to be afraid of it anymore, so that they can conquer it. But as a result, this person has a very restless and shifty mind where they're constantly checking people out and okay, what do you really want? And that can make them seem untrustworthy in many ways, even though actually they're just being perceptive because they know the reality of this world, which is that, monsters are effectively real, and the things that most people ignore the reality of evil entirely. But these people, Scorpio moons, they don't have a choice but to face evil wherever it lurks and try to conquer it. So that it's because that's the only way they can eventually feel safe, is by conquering every fear that they have. So these people are very perceptive, very restless. But if you understand what this moon placement is trying to do, it can actually be a blessing in disguise, because it's a force for personal transformation. So anyway, that was my video on exalted and debilitated moon signs. And next time I'll be doing Mercury. So check me out then. See you then.